What's up, HyperFast Nation? On this episode of the HyperFast Wealth Show, I sat down with a new investor, but you wouldn't know that by looking at his portfolio. In just 4.5 years, he's gone from 0 doors to 70 doors. He is now creating content to educate others and has co-hosted several episodes on the Bigger Pockets podcast. Welcome to the show, Henry Washington. Welcome to the show today, Henry. How are you doing?
I'm well. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm excited to talk about real estate and investing today and just the amazing progress you've made in just a few, short years in terms of, the amount of doors you've been able to get to and, being on some of the biggest real estate platforms in the world, helping to educate other people. So, let's jump right in. Give people your background and how did you make such a rapid, transition into real estate and grow it so fast?
Yeah, man. So the story goes, I started 4.5 years ago, and I kind of found real estate as a result of a panic attack, for lack of a better way to put it. So in my single days, I worked for Walmart, and I was in their software development and data analytics space. And so I had a tech job making phenomenal salary, single male, and, making six figures. And, I had done all the things that they tell you to do. I went to school. I got good grades. I went to college. I got good grades. I got my degree. I got a technical degree so I can make good money. And then I met someone and was planning on getting married, and I got a good job, climbing the corporate ladder. Right, I was ticking all the boxes, the American dream boxes, right. And what I started to realize after I got married was that it wasn't enough, right? Part of it, and part of that was my fault, right? My fault because I didn't have the financial education to help me stretch or invest the money that I was making. I knew nothing about investing. All I knew was make money, spend money. And I got really good at the spending money part. And, when you have a job, the make money part is the same. It doesn't change. And so I was spending more than I was making. And so that would put me in tough spots, living paycheck to paycheck. And I was okay with those tough spots when I was single. But after I got married, my wife quickly let me know that she was not okay in those tough spots. And so that was my first sign that I needed to make a change. And then my wife and I tried to buy a house together. And as we went through the process of buying that house, the lender called me and said, "Hey, we want a loan to your wife for this house. And if you're on the loan, we won't be able to do that. You're going to make this harder for her because your credit's not great." And I just wasn't bringing the things to the table that I needed to bring in order to be bankable enough for them to consider lending. And, when you think you're doing all the right things and then you're trying to, check that next American dream box and buy that first home and be this provider for your new wife, and the bank tells you can't do that, man, that was a big blow to my ego. It was a big blow to just me as a person because I wanted to provide, and it was tough, man. And so that kind of, punched me in the face and the stomach a little bit. It helped me to wake up and realize that I truly needed to make some adjustments. And then I'd say not long after we got married and we moved in that house, well, my wife bought the house and let me live in it with her. I was talking to her one night, and she was, we were talking about all of our goals, right? Like how many kids we want to have and what's our dream home going to look like and where's it going to be, and all these things that, in my head, I'm doing the math. I'm like, man, we barely got here. I don't know how to get past here. And so I freaked out, man. I'm supposed to be enjoying this conversation about our future, and I'm freaking out because I'm like, she's going to leave me. She's going to figure out I only look good on paper, and then when she's starting to do the math now, the math's not mathing, and I'm going to be in some trouble, right? And so I had a panic attack at about 3 a.m, woke up freaking out, and I did the only thing I could think to do at 3 a.m. when I'm freaking out about money, as I started to Google, how can I make extra money? How can I make passive income? right? All the buzzwords I can think about related to money, I was Googling. And that's when I found real estate. That's when I learned that real estate was something that normal people did. Up until then, I just thought rich people, corporations like owned real estate. I didn't really give it much thought. And so, you start Googling and you see all these articles about rental properties and flipping houses and making quick cash and then making mailbox money. And I was like, all right, this seems like a thing people do. I just didn't know. Then I watched this TED Talk, and this kid, he had like 25 doors. He was financially free. And the whole point of the talk was that he was saying, hey, I used real estate to buy my freedom by having my rents cover my life's expenses. And then like, I can just go do what I want. And that was the light bulb moment for me, because up until then I thought to be financially free meant you just had to be this multi-bajillionaire, right? And then not have to worry about your money. But all it really means is you need enough passive income to cover your life's expenses. And then you get to choose to do with your time what you want. And so I was like, wait a minute, this is way more achievable than like I had ever thought it was. And I just decided at 3 a.m, like, if this kid figured it out, I can figure this out. And so I decided I'm going to go be a real estate investor, even though I had bad credit and I only had $1,000 in my savings account to my name. I was like, I can figure it out if this kid figured it out. And so that was like the life experiences that led to me deciding on real estate. And so from that point, woke up the next morning, told my wife, hey, guess what? We're going to be real estate investors. And she was like, yeah, okay, cool. Awesome. Let's do it. Right. And I was like, all right. So from there, I did all the things, new investors do. I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, right? And that made me realize that, I had been doing life wrong my whole life. And so I started to save money and do the things I wasn't normally doing. And then, I just started telling people I was an investor because I just believed, like, I just believe in, like, in life, you get what you give, right? You get what you put out. And so I just wanted to put out there that I was an investor. If I didn't believe it, nobody else is going to believe it. And then I just started going to investor meetups. Any place there was an investor in a room in my local market, I got in the room just because I didn't know how to do it. And so I said, I'll just be around people who do, and maybe something will rub off on me. And so fast forward 90 days after I had that panic attack, I had my first deal under contract just through doing those subtle things and surrounding myself with the right people and surrounding myself with the knowledge. And people sometimes think that just by doing these things, you're not really doing anything, but you are. You're putting yourself in a position to take advantage of the opportunity when it comes. And opportunities come all the time, but a lot of the times we're just not ready. And so we don't either recognize the opportunity or we write it off immediately because we know we're not ready. And so when the opportunity came for me to buy that first property, I was ready and I jumped on it. And so 90 days after I had a panic attack, I bought my first rental. We got pretty creative with how we financed it with the down payment and all of those things I learned because I surrounded myself with other investors. I didn't know those things when I got started, but being in the right rooms helped me be able to answer the questions I didn't know answers to on the front side. And so we got creative. We bought the house. It started cash flowing. The bank gave me a line of credit on the equity in the house that I bought. And before I knew it, after 90 days, I owned a house that was paying me cash flow, and the bank gave me a line of credit on the equity to the tune of about $25,000 to $30,000 that I could use to go buy more deals. And that's when I knew, like, this is it. I found the thing that's going to help me change the trajectory of my family.
So fast forward 4 years after that, I think you said before the show you now have 70 doors, correct?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
How did you go from 1 to 70? Did you move up from like single families to multi-families or just kept scaling single families?
Not really, man. That's a great segue because, like I said, I bought that first property and then I got a line of credit on the equity. So what happened was I didn't really know about lines of credit, but because I bought that first property and I used a small local bank to finance it, that small local bank, after I bought it, called me and said, hey, you've got equity. We'd like to talk to you about giving you a line of credit on that equity so that you can go buy more of these deals so that we can finance more of these deals for you. And then through that process and talking to the banker and doing some research, I realized that these small local banks need to lend to small businesses in order to stay in business. The big banks don't worry about that. The big banks are loaning to people, first-time home buyers, FHA, conventional loans. But the small banks make their money loaning to businesses. And most businesses outside of real estate are super risky. And so if a small local bank goes and lends to a guy starting up a restaurant and the restaurant goes under, the bank gets stuck with all this restaurant equipment that they get to sell for pennies on the dollar, and they lose money. But if a bank loans to a guy who buys a house for $115,000 that's worth $160,000, and I don't make my payments, they take back an asset that's worth well over what I paid for it. And so they can make more money selling that asset themselves, even at a discount, than they're going to make in my normal monthly payments. And so through working with this bank, I started to realize, okay, so if you're going to do these deals and I can have lines of credit to cover my down payments, the only thing that's stopping me from scaling is access to the deals. And so that helped me focus on doubling down on becoming a great marketer of deals so that I could have consistent deal flow. Because if you can solve the deal flow problem and you can solve the financing problem, you can scale at whatever pace you choose to. So that's what we did. We doubled down on scaling.
What about the operations side of it, right? Because if you're operating like one or two of these, fairly easy, and you definitely hit on the finance and the deal flow, which I think is important. But as you've scaled in the number of units, how do you make sure everything still operates smoothly, just in terms of maintenance, upkeep, repairs, renovations, all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, man. So it's all about your systems. And I learned pretty early on after about my third rental that when you get your first and second rental, it's like, y'all pay me however you want to pay me. As long as I get it's awesome. Thank you for the money. It's amazing. And then you get a few more and you're like, I'm not going around collecting checks. I'm not taking phone calls. And so I had to quickly learn that I didn't want to be in that business. And so we implemented systems early on for requiring tenants to pay in our property management system online. So we found a property management system. We put it in our lease that our tenants had to pay in there. We put it in there that they had to put maintenance requests in there. And so we streamlined where everything went. And when we streamlined where everything went, including the money, the maintenance requests, the questions, everything, then it made it a whole lot more, less time consuming to deal with those. And a benefit to me that I think a lot of people in the real estate investment industry that's different is I've never been a construction or handyman guy. I know nothing about being handy or fixing anything. If something breaks, I've never been able to fix it. And so it was never an option for me to say, well, let me go over here and fix this, or, let me go over here. And so I always had to outsource it. And that I thought was going to be a hindrance for me getting into the game, but it's actually turned out to be super helpful because I've never had to worry about, trading, paying a couple $100s for something versus doing it myself. I got to call a guy. And so as I started to build my portfolio and things would break, you go through the ringer of different contractors and you find your favorite ones. And now they're just all in my system. And so if something breaks, it's literally just my wife forwarding an email to the contractor who's going to go fix it. They know to bill us in the system. It's pretty hands off if you set it up on the front side like that. If you don't, it can be an administrative nightmare. But it's pretty with the technology that's out there between property management systems and CRMs. It's pretty easy to just kind of create processes that fit your business or your lifestyle.
Hey, hold that thought. Do you want to get 100 tips for free from my best-selling real estate book, The Hyperlocal HyperFast Real Estate Agent? If you do, go to HyperFastTips.com and you can download 100 of my best tips today. Again, that's HyperFastTips.com. You can download 100 tips on how to grow your business, get more clients, deliver more value to more people. Go to HyperFastTips.com.
What does your typical deal look like? Typical property in your portfolio?
Yeah, man, I'd say, well, now, prices have gone up, obviously. And so, typically we're buying a single family home anywhere between 70 to 150 grand, depending on how big it is or where it is. Then we'll put, anywhere between 10 to 40 into it, and then we'll rent it. Typical 3-bed, 2-bath, nice neighborhood, decent neighborhood. You're going to get anywhere between $1,500 and $2,000 for rent. If it's smaller, then you just kind of adjust on that scale. And so, I'm in Arkansas, so the entry prices are fairly low, but we can rent fairly reasonably because of where I am in Arkansas. There's tons of big business here. Big.
Are you up in? I'm just guessing with the Walmart background. Are you in the Northwest area?
That's
like
right.
Fayetteville?
That's exactly where I'm at. Yep.
Interesting. Yeah, I've heard that area has been booming the last several years. Like a lot of growth, and
it's changed drastically. There's the Waltons are one of the richest families in the world, and so they're pouring all kinds of money into culture and into outdoor living and life, and it's drawing people from all over the world to either come visit here or move here because we're always in the top 2 to 3 places to live, best places to live in America. So but
then
you're
still able to go out and find great homes for $100,000.
That's right.
What have you done to you touched on it briefly, but you said after you figured out the capital part, you had to figure out the deal flow part. How did you go out and do that? How did you go out and generate more leads, more deals?
Yeah. So what I learned through my research, and when I say research, it was just me. Once I decided I was going to be an investor, I didn't listen to music anymore. It was podcasts, books, audio books. And as I started to learn more, I started to tailor those resources down to the topics that I felt were the most valuable. And so once I understood, okay, I've got to figure out how to find deals, I just started honing into what are these deal finding strategies? And that naturally led me to any podcast that had to do with wholesaling. Now, I didn't want to be a wholesaler because I wanted to keep everything. But my thought was, if the wholesalers have all the deals, why don't I just figure out how to operate like a wholesaler? And since I have all the financing I need, I can just keep all the stuff that I want. And so I set my business up to operate like a wholesaler, but then I just keep it all. So at that time, which is still great now, but at that time, this was 4 years ago, direct mail was still the popular thing. And it's, it kind of got unpopular for a couple of years because people started doing text messages and ringless voicemail, but then some of the laws changed, and now that's not as popular, and so more people are back to doing mail. And so
direct mail's coming back again.
Yeah, man, it's coming back. And so now I've been doing it consistently. I tell people, marketing, you have to be relentlessly consistent. You can't stop, you can't slow down, you can't change. If things aren't working, you make a couple of tweaks, and then you go harder. And so we've been doing direct mail the whole time, and I've since added some cold calling pretty heavily into the mix. And so I do all direct mail, direct to seller marketing, and cold calling to generate all my leads.
What's your strategy on the direct mail side? How do you figure out who you're going to target?
Yeah, that's a phenomenal question. You're going to make me tell all the secrets. No, there's no secrets, y'all. That's the true secret is there's enough houses for everybody, right? And so, you need two things, right? When you're going to be an investor and you're going to direct to seller market, you need to be looking for people who have equity, because if there's no equity, there's no deal, right? And you need motivation. They need a reason to sell to you at a discount. If they don't have a reason to sell to you at a discount, they don't need me. They need a real estate agent, right? And so I've just targeted my marketing for those typical things. So my best performing list is my driving for dollars list, and I kind of got smart with how I do that with tools like Deal Machine and PropStream. I've got people that go out and drive and identify distressed homes for me, and I pay them to do that. And so I always have a fresh list of distressed homes that have been identified by actual people's eyeballs, and that's by far my highest performing list. The next thing that we do is I really, really, really like marketing to, you want to market to people who own their home. Get your pens out, because this is good game, folks. You want to market to people who've owned their home for 15 plus years, who And if it's a single family, you can do owner occupied. It doesn't matter if, people tell you do absentees. I don't. I like owner occupieds. They've owned it for 15 plus years, and they've got at least 40% equity, and they're over the age of 50. And kind of what you find in that space is, there's certain cases in that space where there's just some level of distress that they don't keep up with anymore, and are typically sometimes in situations where they want to move to retirement and they don't have the family to help them get there. And so we've been able to, or they don't live in the property anymore. And so like the last property I bought off of this list was a guy who had moved out of the property and let his daughter live there. And she was hoarding, and there was, rats and bugs, and it was really, really, really bad. And he needed to sell the house because he had to pay some medical bills from his wife having cancer. And so he was in a really, really tough spot, and he couldn't sell it with the real estate agent. It was really, really bad. And he didn't want to have to put his daughter out, but he needed to sell the house. And so we were able to come in and offer him a decent price for what the condition the house was in. And then we worked with his daughter and made sure she had a place to go, and we took care of that. And then we were able to get in there and fix the house up. But it took time, right? Like, we weren't just able to buy the house and then start working on it the next day. We had to buy the house, right? And then he had to get paid. And then we had to go talk to his daughter and figure out, like, what's a reasonable time frame for her to be able to move? Where could she go? How could we help her get there, right? There's all these things that aren't typical in the typical home buying process that, like, we as investors figure out how to solve so that everybody kind of ends up in a better situation than they were in before. And then we could do something with the house. So I probably owned that house for 90 to 120 days before we were able to ever get in there and do anything. But that's part of what marketing for distressed properties is about, is you're going to be solving some unusual problems.
Well, and usually the more complex or the more challenging the problem is to solve, the better the reward at the end of the period of fixing that. So
absolutely.
What's transpired now? Let's switch gears a little on the content creation and education side. You've gone on and been able to share your story and help motivate, educate other people to take the same path you have. Yeah,
man. So that's kind of taken on this whole life of its own, and none of it was intentional. Well, said differently, I didn't know it was going to take off like this, but I did intentionally share the journey. So after I did that first deal that we talked about, where I bought that first house, and I started to realize, wait a minute, this is a life-changing endeavor that I'm embarking on. Because after 90 days, I had this property that was cash flowing and line of credit to go do more, and I was just I was overcome with this feeling of responsibility to share this information with people, because I didn't know that it was possible. And I hate using the word easy, but it wasn't difficult to get my first property. Yes, I had to make some difficult decisions around mindset and some difficult decisions around how to take care of my money differently, right? But all of those were just decisions, and then some small actions behind them. But the actual practical steps that it took me to get that deal, that's not rocket science. And I just started to think, man, they don't teach this in school. People. I didn't have anybody in my family that knew these things to prepare me to be able to do something like this. And it's life changing. I remember we did that first deal, and my wife and I had written down our goals, and we were going to buy one house a year for 5 years to supplement our retirement. And after we did that deal, we were like, oh, no, we got to go way bigger than that.
We need more.
Yeah, right. And so we did 5 deals in our first month. And so I said, I've got to share this with people. People need to know that this is a thing that 90 days ago, I was freaking out about how I was going to be able to afford the life my wife wanted, and now I know what the answer is. And now, not only do I think I can afford that life, but I think I can not just use this to supplement my retirement, but use this to retire her and myself in a short period of time. And I said, I've got to share this with people. And so I just started an Instagram, and I just started sharing anything I could, just about the journey. I had no idea like it would grow to a large following. I had no idea that anybody would, like a bunch of people would care, but I was like, I feel like I'm supposed to share this, so I'll share it. And that led me to getting on podcasts and TV interviews, and then I got on Bigger Pockets as a guest, and that really like increased my audience. And so once my audience increased, what happened was I couldn't just talk to everybody who asked me questions anymore because there was too many people. So when I had 500 to 1,000 followers, if 10 people asked me a question over the course of a couple of months, I could answer all the questions, and I was happy to do that. But once my swirling started to grow, I couldn't get to everybody. And so my wife gave me the idea. She was like, well, why don't you take the questions you get asked the most and like create some sort of document or ebook or PowerPoint or something that you could point people to. And then if they go through those things and still have questions, then you can help them. But at least they'll have taken some action and they'll want to use they're not wasting your time. And I was like, that's a phenomenal idea. And so I created 2 courses for that purpose, with no intention of them making me a bunch of money. Like, it was just a way to point people to something that could help them for a really low ticket price, because I didn't want people to pay hundreds of dollars to get answers to questions. But if you pay $20, $30, $40 and get all this information and then you still have questions, I'm happy to answer it. And so we put those out there, and so those days started to sell like crazy. And I was like, oh, wait a minute, like this is an actual business. And so I had to start studying up on kind of e-commerce information businesses and how to better provide information to people that wanted it. Because at the end of the day, the people who want to pay for information are going to pay for it. And if they can't get it from you, they'll get it from somewhere else. And so you need to be able to be ready to capture that and provide people information at the level they want that information at.
Hey, hold that thought for a minute. Do you want to take your real estate business to the next level? If you do, there's no reason to go it alone. Learn from people who've been where you want to go. Carrie and I have sold billions of dollars in real estate. We've netted over 7 figures for 7 years in a row now, and we want to see if you would be a good fit to work for us. We don't work with a lot of people, but we want to give you a chance to get on a free strategy call to see if we can help you get your business to the next level. Go to hyperfastcoach.com and apply for your discovery session today. Again, that's hyperfastcoach.com.
How was it making that first course? Like how long, was the actual course? How long did it take you to make it? Were you nervous?
Yeah. It was I'd say it was about 3 hours worth of, just solid 3 hours worth of information. It took me, I'd say actual like time in front of the computer doing it. It probably took me, I don't know, 10, 20, 30 hours, somewhere in there. Mm-hmm. I'd say more than 10, probably closer to 20 or 30 hours, just because there's a lot of like creating the information and then recording it and then re-recording it. You don't know what you don't know when you're doing this stuff. And I spent a lot of time recording stuff and messing up and then going back and re-recording it. And then I realized that like, I'll just one take it and hope it comes out better. And what I learned through all that process is like people like authenticity, and it feels more authentic the less like pruned and polished it is. Now I'm not saying produce a piece of crap and put it out there, but what I am saying is like it doesn't have to be the most perfectly edited, beautiful, like 4K cameras and super dope transitions, and it doesn't have to be all that. The information is what's important. And if you can get good information to people and they get value from it and it's not as pretty and polished, they feel more connected to you because it feels like something they could do, right? If it's this big production that you would see on like TV, then it's harder for them to feel as close to you. And so, man, it was a tough process for me, mostly because of imposter syndrome. I remember I would write a chapter. I probably wrote the first chapter of my first course 3 times because I would write it and then I would delete it because halfway through me like proofreading it and going over it after I put it out there, I was like, man, nobody wants to hear this. Like, nobody's going to want to hear this from me. Nobody cares what I have to say about this stuff. They can go listen to somebody who's got, hundreds of doors and been doing this for 10 years. I've been doing this nobody wants to hear this from some dude who's just doing this for a couple of years. And I really had to struggle to get through that imposter syndrome and just put it out there. And I remember I was so nervous when I clicked the release button for the first day on the course, because I was like, nobody's going to buy this. It's going to be this big flop. And, it was the exact opposite of that. And it just taught me a whole lot about, like, there's an audience for everyone, right? And if you've got this seed planted in you to start a business or put information out there, like, don't let the voices in your head stop you from doing it, because you don't need hundreds of thousands of people to buy your product. You just need a few people in your niche that like what you have to say, that can resonate with you, and you can change their lives and they can change yours.
What's the name of the course?
So the two courses that I did then were how to finance deals with little to no money using small banks. I wasn't great at naming courses, so that's why that one's so long. And then my other course was Beginner's Guide to Finding Great Real Estate Deals. So those were the two questions everybody had for me. Right. Where are you finding all your deals? How are you paying for them? Because new people, they have these hurdles in their mind that, like, everything's so expensive, I can't buy any deals. And even if I could buy them, I don't have the money. And so these courses help solve those problems and for people. And so it was I just figured it was the two subjects to start with. And so, yeah, it's still out there to this day.
And so do you offer more than that now, by the way?
Yeah, I do. I have I have another course on house hacking, because that's one of the next things that I did after I did my first real estate deal, is I started to realize, like, hey man, like, now that you're into this real estate thing, maybe the way we bought this first home wasn't the best way to do it. And so we ended up selling that home that I couldn't be on the loan for, and we bought a duplex, and we lived in one, and we rented the other unit, and lived, rent pretty cheaply for a couple of years, helped us save a bunch of money. And then we used that money that we saved to buy our dream home. And then the rent from the side we were living in now pays for half the mortgage at my dream home. And I was like, this is a hack people need to know more about. So I created this course, my house hacking blueprint is what it's called. And it just teaches people about, like, A, what's house hacking? B, how do you find deals to house hack? C, like, how do you go about finding loans for those kinds of things? And I just put all that information out there. And so those are the three main courses that I have. And then I also do a mentorship / coaching program, where it's a little more, I'm more involved in helping people on a day-to-day kind of grow and scale, or buy their first property and then grow and scale their business from there. And so I meet with my students in there once a week.
If people want to find out more about the courses or programs, where do they do that?
Perfect. Yeah, the best place to do that is you can go find me on Instagram. I'm at The Henry Washington on Instagram. Then there's a little link in the top of my bio. You click that, and it'll have a link to each one of my courses. It'll also have a link to apply for my mentorship or coaching group if you are interested in having me help you grow and scale your portfolio. Or you can also go to henrywashington.com, and I've got a free book there you can check out.
And I was also going to mention, or maybe you want to chat about what you've been able to do with Bigger Pockets now, because I think that's kind of interesting too.
Yeah, that's cool. That's a fun story. And so when I started my journey, I, like everybody else who's an investor, was like, hey, I want to get on that podcast one day. They've helped me so much. I'd love to be, on that show. And I remember I trying to clear this so you guys can see it. I remember I made a vision board on my phone. I don't know if you guys can see it, but right here in the tile.
Yep. Oh, disappeared. I see Josh and Brandon and is that David on the other? Yeah. Okay.
So I created on this vision board the tile, because I was like, I want to be a guest on the show, and so I just put it on my vision board. And then I went to the Bigger Pockets conference in like 2019, the first or second one they had, and I happened to be there a day early, not because I'm brilliant, but because I'm not good at scheduling. And Brandon Turner happened to be there a day early too. And so I just got to meet him and chat with him, and I was telling him a little bit. And at that point, it was like I'd been like 2 years in it, about two years and some change in it. I had about 30 some odd doors. And I was just telling him my story, and they had just launched their like real estate rookie podcast. And I was like, hey man, if y'all ever need, I know you just started this new show. I've just been doing this for a couple of years. If you need somebody to come, talk on the rookie podcast, like I'd be honored. And he was like, 30 doors in a couple of years, you're going to come on our show. And I was like, well, okay, cool. And so I ended up as a guest on the show, episode 366. It was super cool. And I got to meet all kinds of cool people. And then I just never took that tile off my phone. You see it still there, even though I hit the goal. And, stayed connected with the producers and just nothing fancy. Like it just all came to be from that original show appearance and just trying to be a good person. And so when Brandon announced he was retiring, Kevin, who's not with the company anymore, but he was the producer, he reached out to me and he was like, hey man, Brandon's retiring. And so, we don't know who we're going to bring in to do anything yet, but we need some people to fill in the meantime. Would you mind co-hosting a few episodes for us? And I was like, yeah, man, say less. Just tell me when and where to be. And so I co-hosted a few episodes while they were trying to figure out who they were going to fill it in with. And then I ended up doing a few more co-host episodes for them. And then they asked me to come be a part of that show plus another show just through staying in contact. So I kept that on my vision board, and it's played itself out in awesome ways now. And so now I get to co-host the main show. I get to be a cast member of our new show On the Market, and I do some YouTube content for them. And just it's been really, really kind of a blessing just being able to now contribute to the platform that contributed so much to my success in the beginning.
Yeah, it's awesome to see that come full circle, and really amazing to hear your story. I think there's just so much to take away in terms of visualizing things and actually believing you're going to do it. And, most of real estate's not too complicated. I think,
right.
I think the belief and the mindset really trumps a lot of the actual tactics. And that's for some people, that's the hardest thing to do. And you provide just a great example of how to overcome that.
Thank you so much, man. I appreciate that.
Before we wrap up, I always like to end with a HyperFast round if you are ready for some rapid fire questions and answers here.
Let's do it.
All right. What's your biggest piece of advice to a new investor?
Love it. Perfect segue. You're good at this. See, perfect segue again. He just talked about like mindset is huge because how you do it is it's been a thing. Like real estate's been around forever, right? And so there's so many ways to get into real estate. There's so many different paths you can take. There's so many different financing options. There's so many different types of properties. And I think new people get overwhelmed with all of the what ifs and how should I exactly go do it. And so I tell new people, like, you got to put the blinders on, right? No matter what your strategy is going to be, it doesn't matter if you want to flip, wholesale, multifamily, it doesn't matter. The key to success in any of those exit strategies is your ability to find a good deal. And so just focus on that. So the two things I think all new investors should focus on are A, learning what a good deal looks like in your market. Every market's different. So get around other investors who are successful, ask them about their deals. They'll tell you about their deals. Real estate investors are helpful. They'll love to talk to you. Learn what a good deal looks like in your market or the neighborhoods you want to buy them so you know what price point you should be looking for properties at. And then pick one deal finding strategy. Doesn't matter if it's on-market strategy, off-market strategy, pick one and focus on it until it produces results and you get a deal. And once you get that deal, you'll be so motivated to go figure out everything else to monetize that deal that none of that stuff that other people focus on before they have a deal matters until you have one. It doesn't matter who's going to finance your deal if you don't have one. It doesn't matter who's going to fix up your property if you don't have one. So focus on what's a good deal look like and how do I go find that deal.
All right. What's the biggest mistake you see experienced investors making?
The biggest mistake, we get comfortable. I think we get too comfortable with numbers and we overlook some of the ancillary factors that have to do with deals. And I'll speak for me. I bought a deal that on paper was phenomenal, cash flow monster. How could I not buy it? And then I bought it and realized I overlooked a bunch of stuff. I overlooked exactly how much it was going to cost for me to renovate this very large property because I was so excited about the cash flow it was going to produce, right? I overlooked how difficult it might be for me to get contractors in the area of town that I bought that property in. I overlooked how long it was going to take me to actually renovate a property of that size. I got too comfortable with the numbers being amazing that I didn't think through all of the things that also go along with having a property of that size. And it ended up costing me some money. Now, I sold the deal, I made my money back, and it was all good. But, had I paid attention, put a little more thought into some of the ancillary details around that property, I might have saved myself some trouble. But on paper, the numbers said buy it. Everything else said don't.
What's the biggest challenge you've had in real estate, and what did you learn from it, or how did you overcome it?
Yeah, the biggest challenge when I got started was, I think the thing a lot of people don't talk about when they get started is finding contractors, working with contractors. They can make or break your business. And I didn't know anything about working with contractors, how to find them, how to hire them, what a good one looks like, what a good one's not, how to accurately estimate rehabs and things. And so, I lost a lot of time and money dealing with poor contractors, and I probably passed up on working with some good contractors because I didn't understand how to properly interview, evaluate them, and understand. I remember early on, if a contractor wanted me to pay for him to come give me a bid, I wouldn't do it because I'm like, you want me to pay you? You haven't done anything yet. And now I'm like, man, if you want me to pay for your time to come give me a bid, I like that. Because that means you care about your time, right? You're professional. I'm going to get a better bid. It's going to be more accurate because I'm paying for it, right? And I'd rather have somebody who's more professional manage my, $50,000-$60,000 rehab than somebody who came, at a moment's notice and wrote up something on a napkin and handed it to me. And so just working with contractors in general, you need to be able to do that to be a successful investor if you're buying properties that you're going to add value to, and it's not as easy as people think it is on the front side. So learning some of that stuff along your way and being intentional about learning specifics around that as you're getting started is probably pretty helpful.
That's a really, I think, healthy viewpoint on paying for bids. Yeah. Last question in the HyperFast round. Where do you see yourself 5 years from now?
Oh man, that's a great question. These are the questions I'm supposed to have some super sexy answer for, and I don't. I don't, man. Look, I don't know what I don't know. And if you would have asked me 5 years ago, would I be here right now? I'd have told you you're crazy. Remember, I've only been doing this for 5 years, and so if you'd have told me I'd be sitting here, helping produce content for Bigger Pockets, I'd have 70 doors, I'd be speaking on stages, and I'd tell you you're nuts, man. There's no way. And so I don't know, man. I don't know where I'm going to be in 5 years. I know what I do know is that I'm going to continue to buy property, improve my community, provide affordable housing, and build wealth, and then teach people how to do it. At what scale? I don't know. How many doors am I getting into? I don't know. I'll keep buying until God or my wife tells me not to. All
right. Well, I love the confidence, love the honesty, love your story, and just want to thank you for being on the show today. Before we sign off, I know you mentioned, I think your Instagram was the Henry Washington. Is that right?
Correct.
Yeah, and then the website was henrywashington.com, I think.
henrywashington.com for a free book.
Yep. Is there any
No, those are the best
where
places,
else
man.
people to connect with you?
Those are the best places. Again, on Instagram, click that link in my bio, and that'll take you to where my courses are. And then, I've got a free book, henrywashington.com. Hit me up on Instagram. We'll do our best to get to everybody who tries to reach out. So thank you.
All right. Well, I thank you for being on the show, and to all of our listeners and viewers out there, thank you for tuning in. Please leave us some feedback and share this episode with people that you think would benefit from listening or watching Henry's story. We'll see you next time. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure and go to hyperfastagent.com to learn about upcoming in-person and online events. And don't forget to share this show with someone that you think could benefit from hearing it, and make sure you subscribe on YouTube or anywhere that you can find podcasts.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of the HyperFast Show. Subscribe to us if you want to make sure you get the latest and greatest HyperFast shows. And remember, we love reviews. Reviews help us bring better and better guests and improve our shows. So give us the good, the bad, and the ugly. We hope you enjoyed the show, and we will see you next time.
Hey guys, thanks for sticking around to the end. I hope you enjoyed that video, and if you want to see more, click right here. And if you want 100 real estate tips from my best-selling book, click right here to download them instantly. And if you're new to this channel, click below to subscribe.